little bit about my background. My interest in money comes to me, I think, from my father, because he was also very interested in monetary matters. And around the dinner table at home when I was growing up, the conversation always went around to the political things and the state of the economy and money and what was being done in Mexico and what had happened in the past. And so those things I absorbed as a youth, and then continued to think about them in later life. And as events proved, well, the monetary thing is at the heart of our world now. It seems to me that we are, as Mr. Tahir said, we're on the verge of very great changes. And that is why I took after seeing Mr. Max Kaiser, he's an extraordinary person, much more brilliant and quick than I am. But after seeing him on his program in London, he shot a question to me, and he said, "What if we go to Greece? Would you fly to Greece?" I said, "Certainly, let's go to Greece." So there, right then and there, he got me right there, and we went to Greece without any prior notice, and arrived there and had a very interesting conversations with newspapermen and television, an interview, and discussing the problems of Greece. Well, Greece is simply a little bit further ahead in the problems that everybody is going to have sooner or later. So I wrote an article in Greek. Well, I didn't write it in Greek. I wrote an article for Mr. Tsipras, who is the head of the Syriza party in Greece. And I sent it to him, translated into Greek. But I don't know if he received it. You know, it's so hard to get a message to a politician because things are filtered by his assistant, and sometimes if the assistant doesn't consider that the message is worthwhile, it just goes into the wastebasket and doesn't reach the person it's directed to. Or maybe it has, and maybe Mr. Tsipras is just keeping quiet and will pull something interesting out of the bag. What I proposed to Mr. Tsipras was declare bankruptcy for Greece, get it over with, and return to the drachma, and that will be a period of inflation, but at least it will get people back into some activity and will calm things down a little bit. Well, some people are getting some papers that they can use to purchase something to eat and something for their daily necessities, and get the country moving again with an inflationary currency. But at the same time, introduce a silver drachma, a silver coin quoted in drachmas, so that the conservative people who are in the right wing, you might say, that can have something to fall back on and have some hope for a better stable future, and for the savings of those who can acquire these coins by their work. Well, I don't know if this is advice that is going to be taken or not. Probably not. But anyway, one does what one can. And the whole world is in the same situation. You know, we find who are the obstacle right now? It's the central banks of the world. The subject is so vast that I don't know where to begin. But the whole economics profession has been built on a philosophy, a way of thinking that is mistaken. And the central banks are run by such people who are consider themselves economists, and they are now, let's say, perhaps they're sitting on a tiger. They don't know how to get off the tiger, because the tiger, if they get off the tiger is going to eat them. So that's sort of what the situation is, and perhaps they understand that the situation is untenable, but they don't know what to do, and nobody dares do anything, because all the central bankers are like people, are men and women that belong to a kind of guild, a brotherhood, and they are not big people. They are relatively small people. They follow the instructions, they follow the rules which are set for them by the IMF, whoever sets the rules for the central banks. Basel, and Basel themselves are also dirigistes. In other words, they are the same way of thinking, the same philosophy. And so there can't be any change. The thing just rolls on until it's going to collapse. The thought comes to mind about Zimbabwe. You know that Zimbabwe, well, you all know what happened to them with their finance minister, Mr. Gono. Well, they applied stimulus, just like Mr. Bernanke and the Federal Reserve is doing, or like the British are doing with the Bank of England. Stimulus, get the economy moving again. And so they got to the point where they were issuing 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollar notes. I have a copy in the I have a copy of the note. It's 100 trillion. It's absurdity. It comes to the point of absurdity. You have bigger numbers mean something? What is the number? The number's a number. It's something vacant. It's a concept only. There's nothing material behind it. So no matter how much you put, how big a number you put to it, it's not going to do any good. So what happened to Zimbabwe? They printed and printed and printed and printed until there was nothing to do, and people were starving. So finally, one day, everybody decided they were not going to use those Zimbabwe dollars to do business. They would use something else. The money from the neighboring countries, or euros, or American dollars, whatever they had available, what was put into use as a means of exchange. And the Zimbabwe dollar just died. Well, now, what is going to happen in the world when the US dollar dies? It's going to die. It is going to die. It has no possibility of surviving for long term. It can go on for several years, perhaps several years, yes. But it's going to go down, 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 down. There is no alternative. What can you go to as money? There's nothing you can go to. You can buy a house. You can buy artwork. You can buy perhaps a piece of land. It's all speculation and more or less illiquid. There's no alternative to the dollar. All the currencies in the world are simply derivatives of the dollar. The ringgit is a derivative of the dollar. The Mexican peso is a derivative of the dollar. The euro is a derivative of the dollar because it has dollar reserves. As long as a country has dollar reserves, its currency is a derivative. Only when they go to gold, 100%, that's a different question. Then it's no longer a derivative. Then the currency becomes, well, a derivative, but of gold, not a derivative of a dollar, which is a derivative of nothing, because it has nothing behind it. It represents nothing. It's redeemable in nothing. So then the question is, what is going to happen when this whole system melts down. And there's serious problems. Perhaps as soon as the beginning of next year or end of this year, there's going to be, I expect, serious problems that are going to shake the world. I would be surprised if they don't. So that's why I've been thinking of silver as an alternative. And it can be done very simply. If these people in the central banks only understood that your system, your ship is going down. It's going down. You need to have a lifeboat for your people. Where are the lifeboats? There are no lifeboats. There's no alternative. So then, what are we going to do? I propose at least to create some lifeboats for people so that when the system collapses, as in Greece, people have something with which to go, continue doing business and obtaining the things they need from their savings. And there is a currency, a parallel currency waiting to be implemented, but mostly for savings. And so I have come to the conclusion that silver can be monetized in a way that it goes in parallel with paper money anywhere. I used to think that a coin, a silver coin, should be a 1 ounce. But you know what? A 1 ounce coin is too big now. It's a big coin this size. It used to be worth $5. Now it's worth something like $34 at this moment. So multiply that by 3 ringgits, that's a little over 101 or 102 ringgits for 1 coin. That's just the silver, plus the cost of the minting, etc. It would have to cost a little more. So it's too much money to put into 1 coin. So I've decided to promote a smaller coin, a 1/10 of an ounce. And this is 1/10 of an ounce, or a little less than a 1/10 of an ounce, would be the weight of the silver dirham. And I think that the idea of a silver dirham for Malaysia is interesting because you have an important majority of the people in this country, in Malaysia, are Muslims. And there you have an ancient coin that was the glory of Islam in the years 800, 900, 1000 of the Christian era. It was the Islamic dirham was a very esteemed coin all over Europe because of its stability. It was admired and coveted as a means of savings. And that was slightly under 1/10 of an ounce. So for Malaysia, I'm suggesting the monetization of a coin, would be about this size. This is 1/10 of an ounce. A little coin, but what a difference it can make in life. And this coin can be turned into money very easily. It's really ridiculously simple. All you have to do is have the treasury. Notice I say the treasury, not the central bank. The treasury. Because the treasury, why do I mention the treasury? Because the treasury is an instrument of the state. And it's the state's responsibility to provide good coinage for the people. That is one of the fundamental responsibilities of a government, not of a central bank. Central bank deals with finance, and with it forms a cartel of the local bankers, the central bank. These are not the people who should be producing the nation's money. Excuse me for saying so. But I don't say it only for Malaysia. I say it for the world, and I say it for Mexico, for my own country. It's not the central bank who should be doing this. It is the treasury, an arm of the government. And the way that this coin could be monetized would be to give the coin a monetary value, but it's not stamped upon the coin. You see what happened to all the silver money that was in existence in the last century, up until the 40s, up until World War II. There was a great deal of silver money in circulation all over the world. But that was before the great inflation that began with World War II and continued after World War II, when the United States continued to inflate the dollars continually, and to send the reserves abroad to the world, which transmitted the American inflation into inflation abroad, to the reserves. Then what happened, the silver coinage that existed, the silver went up in value. And when the silver went up in value, it exceeded the stamped value on the coin. You see, suppose this coin had a stamped value on it. Suppose it had a stamped value of 15 ringgit on the coin. And the price of silver goes up, and as soon as the price of silver is as soon as the value of the silver in the coin is worth more than 15 ringgit, then the coin is melted down, because the silver is worth more as silver than as a coin. So it will be melted down. There's no use keeping it as a coin. This is what happened to the coinage all over the world. It disappeared because the price of silver went up. The coinage had a stamped value, which was exceeded by the price of silver. And so all the coinage in the world was melted down. What is the solution? I was thinking about this back in 2001, and thinking and smoking my cigar, because I sit in my library and close the door and smoke my cigar, and I say, I'll see you later to my wife. My poor wife, she's accustomed to my going into solitary in my library because she doesn't like it if I don't smoke. I enjoy my cigar. So I'm sitting there smoking. How am I going to do this? How can we monetize this coin? And well, until the idea came to me. Of course, give it a quoted value. Don't put a stamped value. Give it a quoted value. There are lots of things that have a quoted value. Stocks have a quoted value. They're going up and down, and everybody hopes to go up and not down. So why should the coin have a quoted value? In ancient times, the ancient Islamic dirham did not say how much it was worth. It just said what the weight was. That's all it said. I've seen pictures of those. You can see them on Wikipedia. You see pictures of the ancient Islamic coinage. And so, go back and learn the lesson from the past. Do not put a monetary value on it, a quoted value given by the treasury. And make that quoted value slightly higher than the value of silver. When the price of silver rises to a certain point, then the treasury gives a higher quote. And you know, well, you don't know, but I will tell you that in Mexico we had a good president who had a good intuition, like your president, Prime Minister Mohammed Mahathir, from whom I have enormous admiration for him, for his brilliant intuition. Brilliant. Wanting to bring gold and silver back into the economy. And so also we had a president who was a good politician, who had he came to a tragic end, really. But he did something very good. Among the mistakes that he made, he did something that was brilliant. When we were having a petroleum, an oil boom in 1978, 79, we were having a boom. So he said, we must learn to manage our wealth correctly. We must learn to manage our wealth. And he said, the Mexican people should have a solid currency. And so he sent a a project of a decree to the legislative power, and it was approved. Had to be approved in those days. What the president of Mexico said was what had to be done, and there was no arguing. That's the way it was then. And so this coin, a 1 ounce coin, was monetized. It was given a monetary value by the central bank. It was given a monetary value, and every day the price changed. One day it was up, and one day it was down. One day it was up, and then it was down. And so what happened was it really didn't turn into money because it didn't have a stable value. If you look at any bank note, you will see here. You will see on any bank note the ringgits, 10 ringgits, 20 ringgits, 50, 100. But that value does not change. The ringgit might go down in value, or can go up in value, but the value on the note does not change. And the same thing with the coin has no stamp value. The value should be able to go up when the price of silver rises, so that it does not go out of circulation, so that it doesn't get melted down. But at the same time, once a new value is given, that should remain stable. In other words, if the price of silver goes down, this coin is not worth less. It is worth the same amount. That is all that is required to put a silver coin into circulation in parallel with the ringgit system. And the advantages of this are very good for the population. You see, one thing that we must understand about money is that when money is not worth our confidence, or is doubtful, or it is the only, we use it because it's the only money that we are allowed to use, which is a situation everywhere. Here in Malaysia, the same as in Mexico, the same as in the States. We're not given an alternative. We have to use that money. And when people use money that is not stable, that is not related to something firm, and which they know, which they have full confidence on, or when it is not something physically in their hands, like this coin, which they know, here is my silver coin. This is not a promise. This is not a paper that promises me. This is something real, which I can have. I can obtain this and save it. When people have real money, they change their way of doing things and of looking at life. In other words, people do not behave the same. When they have money of low quality, they behave in one way. And when they have money of good quality, they behave in another way. And that is a way that I think that is a good thing. That people should do what they think is best. Not to be forced to use one currency and behave in a defensive manner with that currency. Because when we use a currency that we're not fully confident in its enduring value, we behave in a different way than when we have our savings in something that is tangible and universal, worldwide value. People change. Now, this is something that the central banks are afraid of. They say, well, we've built this world on the basis of paper and banking money, credit cards. We've built a world of credit cards, electronic communications. It's marvelous. But if it's false, if we give people real money, what is going to happen? They're going to behave differently. No, good heavens. We don't want them to behave differently, because we're out of a job if that happens, and we don't know what the consequences are going to be. Well, yes, the consequences will be that we go back to a more real economy, a more real way of deciding what we do with our income. For the present time, Everybody spends. Spend, spend. And that's what the central banks want everybody to do. They want to, now they want to print now by the trillions, so that people will spend. They're trying to push people. I don't believe in pushing people. I believe in attracting people. Attract them with a good coin. Attract them and see how they behave. They will behave in a rational way. They will save this currency. No, say the central bankers, we can't have you saving. If you save, everything collapses. Well, yes, it collapses because you gave us bad money and we behaved the way we behave when you have bad money. And now we have good money and you don't want this to collapse, but you are the ones who are responsible for having made a boom that cannot be sustained. You are the ones who are. Well, I've spoken now. I've told you that I'm proposing a silver dirham. And just imagine the result of Malaysia issuing a silver dirham about this size in parallel with the ringgit. Imagine the impact on the people of Malaysia. The optimism, it would be phenomenally positive. This country would become even more of a powerhouse than it already is, because people behave differently when they have full confidence and pride. Aside from the pride of having the best currency in the world, they behave differently because now they have different objectives. With better money, you have different objectives. You're not continually defensive. You're trying to find a way to be one step ahead of what the inflation is going to be. So, but imagine the effect also on your neighbors. Imagine the effect on Indonesia. If Malaysia has the dirham in parallel with the ringgit, Indonesia can have the same coin, mint their own coins, and quote it with a identical system. In other words, you have then a common currency between Malaysia and Indonesia, one of the most populous countries in the world. And so the influence of one country doing something like this, it expands and has unpredictable effects, good effects all over the world. I think it would signify the union, it would foment, it would favor the union of the Islamic countries one by one to go to a real money, and not to a money that is basically a derivative of the dollar. Because whether you like it or not, all the Islamic countries are now on a dollar standard. Now, the United States is trying to choke Iran by forbidding anybody to send dollars to Iran. Well, the curious thing has happened. They went to gold. Well, the thing that they least wanted, this is what the American policy has obtained. The thing they had furthest from the mind was to provoke a return to gold, because the dollar, of course, gives the Americans an enormous power. But by choking off Iran from the use of dollars, they went to gold. So now they are selling their oil for gold. I've read how they're doing it, and perhaps you've seen it too. I think it's very amusing. They are selling their gas, I believe, or yes, gas, to Turkey. And they get paid in Turkish liras. Now, what is the Turkish lira? Turkish lira is nothing, and nobody wants the Turkish lira. It's really, as we say, the pits. But they give them the Turkish lira. But with a provision. The Iranians then receive the Turkish lira payment for the gas, but then they can use the Turkish lira to buy gold from the Turks. So they're getting billions of gold is coming through Turkey, from Europe, through Turkey, and passed on to Iran as they exchange their liras for gold. So what is this essentially? It's gas for gold. That's what it is. That's what it boils down to. So we're going down the fundamentals. When things get difficult, the gold will be the way that things are going to have to fall. Well, I've explained to you that I think that we need, in the world, we need one country to break this stranglehold of paper and bank money on the populations by this cartel, worldwide cartel, which is the cartel of central banks in the world. They're all brothers, they all understand each other, they all know what they're doing, they line up and have their picture taken when they get together. But none of them is big enough to say, hey, I don't like what you guys are doing. I'm going to do things differently. No, good heavens. You can't do that. Fine. Yes. It's absurd. What will the IMF say? What will you do? And so people are cowed down. And somewhere, somehow, when things get difficult, the silver will come back into use for people. I wrote an article many years ago about Iran, and I suggested, I have it on my website, there it is. I told the Iranians, give your people silver coin. They would call it a riyal. I think they would call it a silver silver coin ordered in riyals, so that they have savings. Now what is happening in Iran is the people are frightened because the country is undergoing a tremendous inflation. And what do? Now they're trying to buy dollars. And I wrote, if you give the people riyals, silver riyals, they won't have to go to dollars. They will buy, they will, if they have riyals, if they have their savings in riyals, there will be no need for them to go to buy a foreign currency. They will be safe in their silver Iranian riyals. No problem. They already have a good currency. They don't have any reason to buy a foreign currency. But the message doesn't, as I say, is always filtered. And it's hard to get a message to the people who decide matters. And, well, summing up, for the moment, I'd like to hear your questions. I'd like to hear them. But in Mexico, you know, we've been after this and talking to people for so many years that now our politicians, we just had an election, we had a new group of legislators in the lower house, of chamber of deputies, that would be like the House of Representatives in the States, and in the Senate. There's no re-election for these people cannot be re-elected. They're new. That's good. That's good. I like that idea that they're not re-elected. And we've been talking about silver so long that to the politicians now, they have an idea. They've heard about it and they like the idea. Some of them understand it completely, and others have just a vague idea. But in general, the idea is good. It's favorable, and the idea that it doesn't have a stamped value doesn't sound strange anymore, because they've heard it for a long time. When you first say, well, I want a coin without a stamped value, it's not done anywhere. So that's the first argument. But people have become, the politicians have become accustomed to this, and they don't see it as something strange anymore. And they don't see it as strange that when the price of silver falls, that the value of the coin should not fall. The fall value of the coin should remain up. Because we've explained that many times with historical evidence that a coin with stamp value, when the price of silver went down, nothing happened to the coin. Nothing happened to it because of the stamp value. Well, if you have a quarter value and it doesn't go down, you have the same effect. The reduction in the price of silver will be meaningless. But anyway, we have come to the point where we've had a lot of support in the Congress. And so, in the coming months, we're presenting a new bill. I think it's the fourth time that we present a bill. So always do it. Always insist, and keep talking about this. And as things get worse, because I told people here before the crash of 2008, I told them there's a big crash coming. There's a big problem generated, and it's coming. It's going to catch the world by surprise. It's happening. So, if there is a possibility, maybe we shall obtain the monetization of this small coin. It's a Mexican coin, the series of coins called the Libertad coin. They have no stamp value on them. And perhaps we shall see success, which would be the crowning achievement for me for my life. And I have nothing further could be. I mean, it would be the maximum for me to see that done for my country. It would please me so much to have been able to do that. Let's see if the central bank, maybe this time, we can reason with it. You know, because we were talking about it. I'm not talking about a new coin. What's on the other coin? Maybe we can, let's see that way.